Victoria Hayes strode through the bustling airport terminal, her designer coat draped over her arm, exuding an air of quiet confidence. The CEO of Horizon Air was used to navigating high-stakes boardrooms, not security checkpoints, but today would prove to be an exception. As she approached the security line, an officer eyed her with suspicion. "Ma'am, step aside for a random check." Victoria hesitated for a brief moment before complying. Around her, whispers began to spread among the staff. "Something feels off about her," one officer murmured. Another checked her ID and gasped. "This can't be right." Victoria remained silent, watching the unfolding situation with a knowing smirk. Chapter 2. A name that raises eyebrows. The security officer scanned Victoria's ID once more, his brows furrowing. Behind her, the line of restless passengers shifted impatiently, but she remained composed. She had faced far greater challenges than this. "Ma'am, please step aside," the officer said, his voice firm but polite. She sighed, but obeyed, moving toward a designated inspection area. A female officer joined, her eyes flicking between Victoria and the screen in front of her. "Is there a problem?" Victoria asked evenly. The officer hesitated. "Your ID says you're Victoria Hayes." Victoria tilted her head. "That is correct." The male officer, Officer Reynolds, exchanged glances with his colleague. "But Victoria Hayes is the CEO of Horizon Air." A small smirk played on Victoria's lips. The female officer shook her head. "You're claiming to be the CEO of Horizon Air? That's impossible." Victoria sighed. This was not the first time someone had doubted her position. She was young for a CEO, only 32, and her casual yet elegant style did not fit the mold of a corporate powerhouse. "I'm not claiming anything," she said. "That is a fact." Chapter 3. A Clash of Protocols. The officers exchanged glances again. Officer Reynolds cleared his throat. "Ma'am, we have strict protocols. Your name is flagged because there is an internal memo stating that Horizon Air CEO does not travel without prior notice to security. Yet, we have no record of your flight." Victoria's jaw tightened. So that was it. Someone at the corporate office must have decided to enforce a rule she had never approved. "That memo," she said, "was not my decision. And as CEO, I reserve the right to travel whenever I choose." The officers remained unconvinced. Another uniformed staff member joined them, a supervisor. "What's the issue?" he asked. "This woman is claiming to be Victoria Hayes," Reynolds explained. "But her travel status was not recorded, contradicting internal security protocols." The supervisor studied Victoria carefully. "Do you have any additional proof of identity?" Victoria pulled out her phone and opened an email from the board of directors, her official signature at the bottom. She handed it over. The supervisor scanned the screen, his expression shifting from suspicion to shock. "This," he started, looking up at her. "This email is legitimate. Victoria Nadif." "Of course it is." Before anyone could say another word, a new voice cut through the air. "What is going on here?" Victoria turned to see an older man in a tailored suit approaching. It was Charles Whitmore, the chairman of the board. His eyes landed on her, widening in recognition. "Oh no," Reynolds muttered under his breath. Whitmore reached her in seconds. "MS. Hayes, I had no idea you were flying today." Victoria smiled, but there was an edge to it. Neither did they. The officers stiffened, realizing their mistake. Whitmore turned to them. "Did you stop our CEO?" The supervisor swallowed. "Sir, we—" Whitmore sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "Unbelievable." He turned to Victoria. "My sincerest apologies. This should not have happened." Victoria exhaled slowly. "I understand protocols, Charles. But perhaps it's time to remind your staff that a woman can, in fact, run an airline." The officers looked mortified. Whitmore nodded. "I will handle it." Victoria gave one last glance at the security team before picking up her bag. "Good. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a flight to catch." Chapter 4. The Hidden Threat. Victoria walked through the terminal, her heels clicking against the polished floor. The moment at security had annoyed her, but she refused to let it ruin her day. She had worked too hard to be where she was. Yet moments like these reminded her that some still doubted her authority. She reached the Horizon Air VIP lounge, scanning the room as attendants rushed to accommodate her. A young employee, probably new, hesitated before approaching. "Ma'am, can I help you?" he asked uncertainly. "Victoria se presta ahí. Just a coffee." "Black." The employee nodded and hurried away. She took a seat near the large window overlooking the runway, checking her emails, ignoring the few stares from passengers who recognized her. Her phone buzzed. It was Charles Whitmore. She debated letting it ring, but eventually answered. "Yes." "Victoria, I want to apologize again for what happened at security," Whitmore said. "That should never have happened." Victoria leaned back in her chair. "It wasn't the first time, Charles, but I expect it to be the last." He cleared his throat. "I understand. I'll personally ensure all staff are properly trained. But that's not the only reason I called." "Victoria Froneth." "What is it?" Whitmore hesitated. "There's something going on within the company. I can't talk over the phone, but I need you to be careful." Victoria's grip on her phone tightened. "What do you mean?" "I'll explain once you land. But let's just say, someone doesn't want you in charge." Victoria exhaled slowly. "That's not new information. This time, it's serious," Whitmore warned. "Someone tried to block your flight information from our system. That was no accident." A chill ran down Victoria's spine. "Who? I don't know yet," Whitmore admitted. "But be careful." Victoria ended the call, her mind racing. If someone within the company was trying to sabotage her, she needed to find out who, and fast. Just then, the young employee returned with her coffee, setting it down nervously. "Here you go, ma'am." Victoria gave him a nod. "Thank you." He lingered for a second before speaking again. "If you don't mind me saying, you handled that situation at security really well." Victoria looked up, mildly surprised. "You saw that?" The employee nodded. "I was nearby. Most people would have lost their temper." Victoria smiled fondly. "Losing your temper doesn't get you far. Staying in control does." He nodded thoughtfully. "I'll remember that." As he walked away, Victoria's focus shifted back to her phone. Whitmore's warning echoed in her mind. Someone was trying to keep her off that flight. The question was why?